Hello and welcome to the Help Is Here podcast. Today we're going to be talking about gooning addiction. Gooning is a word that has become increasingly popular over the last few years. I remember for me personally, there was a time when I was in the depths of the porn addiction and I'd go on Instagram and I'd go from hashtag to hashtag until I ended up at hashtag gooning and gooning addiction and gooners and certain hashtags around that. I remember seeing a few posts from Arsenal football fans when I was in that head state, because the Arsenal are like the Gunners, right? So it's similar words, but for the most part there was a lot of porn on there. This was a number of years ago, so hopefully that hashtag is a little bit different and there's less of that content, but I kind of doubt it. Now, this week a documentary came out by a guy from the UK. He went over to LA and he was meeting a guy who identified as a gooner, and he had created his own goon cave. And so me and Mary have both watched this documentary. We'll have a little bit of a chat about this today. Welcome on the podcast, Mary. So Before this documentary, had you heard of this word before, gooning and gooners?
Well, I think of the Goonies, right, is the really popular old movie that was filmed in Astoria over here on the Oregon coast, but it's just such a funny word to begin with, and that it's like, because of what it is, and seeing this documentary, I'm just like, it's just like this common language, the gooning and the goon cave and the GPH, goon per hour, whatever, how many gooners there are, increasing per hour or whatever. It's just funny to me. It's a funny word, and then to make it seem like it's just like this household term, like this normal thing. And when you actually see what's going on, it was pretty shocking to me, I have to tell you. I thought I knew about a lot, but man, I didn't know that was going on. Holy crap. Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. And you're right that the word like gooning, it's a funny sounding word, and I've obviously watched the film the Goonies and all of that,
and the way you say it's even funnier.
But it's no laughing matter in many ways. I mean, it's pretty dark.
No.
And it's really just a byproduct of that escalation of the porn addiction, the tolerance cycle. That guy there, he had about 20 different monitors, spending up to 12 hours in one day just consuming porn. Really, really dark stuff.
Yeah, it was very glamorizing, like the goon cave. And it's just like, you think of it like the man cave, where the guy has his TV and his, whatever else he's got going on in the man cave. But it was very glamorizing to me. And we're not going to play clips of it. We're just going to talk about it. Because it was, there were some clips in there that to me were just literally infuriating. The way that, the guy tried to talk about it, a couple times he would talk about it being an addiction, but they had that therapist in there who was just, I mean, I hope there's better therapists in the world, because she was lame, and she was kind of like, I don't know if she was nervous or something, but she was just like chuckling when it was like, this is some really serious, content. And she had an opportunity to, talk to the guy in a real way about this problem he's having, because he was alluding to it as a problem. And she was almost like glamorizing it. It was very weird. It was very odd to me to watch her not, offer anything helpful or any kind of perspective that maybe this is a problem and maybe this is not normal. Because I think about, like, if other young guys, like you said, you ended up seeing gooning, right, or whatever. Other young guys seeing that, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, I want to get a goon cave, and it was, and the other thing, and he said it's something like, oh, it was just maybe a phase. So maybe it was a phase in his life that he was going through or something like that. And it's like, this is a full-blown addiction, dude, and you can't just turn that on and off when you're done with this phase in your life. You know what I mean? It was hardcore, in my opinion. So, but very normalized and very made light of, like, even the therapist giggling. She was annoying. I really wanted to like call her up on the phone and go, what are you doing?
Yeah. There's a couple of things. There's a couple of things here I'd like to talk about. So, first of all, did you see the YouTube comments?
I did not go into the comments. I still haven't done that, but I do want to. But you mentioned that the guys in the comments were not really on board, right?
Yeah, because in the documentary, the therapist is sort of validating the behavior and trying to dig deep into the why, the cause, the reason as to why this guy would spend up to 12 hours with 20 monitors watching porn. And in the comments, people were talking about how people can be so negatively impacted by the pornography that does become the biggest issue in their life. And so this therapist trying to validate the porn as if it's some normal, healthy behavior was quite wrong and wasn't very useful. And a lot of the comments were really criticizing the therapist, which did give me a bit of faith in humanity. You know, there was some good critical thinking going on, which is really good. But the second thing I wanted to talk about is just in response to what you said there about how, you know, this addiction is a real addiction, right? And he was like aware of that. And yeah, maybe it's not labeled as an addiction by some of the people in the medical community. And there's a lot of money involved here. And we could go down some, you know, rabbit hole of conspiracy theories and understanding that. But let's be honest, if there's a behavior in your life like this where you're spending 12 hours watching 20 different screens of porn and it's impacting your life more than anything else, well, let's just call it for what it is, and that's a problem, all right? Whether we call it an addiction, a bad habit, whatever you want to call it, it's a serious, serious problem. And so to try and downplay it and kind of have these justifications like, oh, well, for the other 6 days of the week, I'm able to, you know, live life fairly normally. I'm able to go and crack on with my work and earn enough money. They're just the rationalizations that are part of the mind, the addictive part of the mind will come up with. And we see this a lot, especially on calls where I'll have a discovery call with someone for the first time, and maybe they're not at that level of awareness to really identify this as the key driving problem in their life. And what I'll often hear is, well, I don't do it that often. But what you've got to do is zoom out and see that it's not about how often you're doing it. And maybe you are going a week or a few weeks without engaging in it, but it's the fact that you're stuck in that repetitive cycle of stopping and then overall increasing that tolerance and then looking at progressively novel content. And that cycle may be one where you stop for even a few months, but then you end up binging, edging and engaging in it for, you know, a good amount of time and looking at this progressively novel content that you feel pretty terrible about afterwards. And that's what leads to this horrible cycle of shame, exhaustion, frustration, low confidence, low self-esteem, and so many problems in your life. And I just want to make that clear because it is a little bit different to perhaps some other addictions in that sort of cyclical nature to it, where you may not do it for quite a little while and then a part of your mind says, oh, well, it's not that bad, it's normal, I can control this. But actually you're really in quite deep. And this is what happened to me. And I bullshitted myself into believing that it wasn't that big of a problem because I was able to go on these temporary streaks and feel like I had some control over it. But all of that was really an illusion in hindsight.
Well, you know, too, it's like that controlling it, going on a streak or whatever, and always have it looming. You know, it's a looming, like, you know, it's almost worse, you know, because it's like this unresolved problem. You know, it's there. You just kind of do it, you know, trying to avoid it or whatever, but you know it's coming back and that's just going to wear on you, you know? And the other thing too, you know, I think with this therapist is she obviously knew nothing about addiction, but it's just like this usual therapy spew was, you know, like somehow she was connecting it to maybe his sexual desires or whatever, innate sexual desires, which you got to remember. Most of the guys that we work with and most of the guys that get addicted to porn, their innate sexual desires get, you know, get hijacked. People use that word a lot, but I mean, in this situation, it is the right word. They get hijacked by the pornography use. And it's like, how can you analyze it, you know, about their innate sexual desires when that's all they really know, you know, is there's such a huge difference between innate sexual desire and compulsive porn desire, you know? And if you don't understand that and you don't know that, you're not going to be able to help these guys sort it out so they can get back to what might be at, I want to say, you know, the word normal is like, people are like, oh, you shouldn't say that or whatever, but the normal sexual desires. sitting in a goon cave with 20 monitors, talking about your different lube with the interview guy. Like, it's just like, that's not normal. I'm sorry if it, sue me for being politically incorrect or whatever, but that's just not normal. If people normalizing it is not helping anybody because, it's going to just, the guys that are in the porn addiction and they're in that tolerance cycle are going to go, oh, yeah, well, this is how I can maybe get off more, And next thing you know, I mean, that guy, his life was not normal. He wasn't having like, oh, I'm just going to do my goon cave once a week and then the rest of my life is like normal. It's not like going to the movie on the weekend, It's like he was suffering and he kept, like I say, he kept trying to allude to it, but he was not getting any interest from her to like explore that further and say, what's really going on here and how can I help,
Yeah, I mean, normal behaviours don't require people to wear a mask during a full documentary,
Yeah.
Right? If this was just some normal behaviour, you would be able to show your face, whereas this guy's wearing a mask.
Just a casual attitude. It's like it's like a cooking show or something. And they're asking someone how they're making their chili or their tacos or something. Just the casual way that they spoke about it was really kind of shocking to me. It's like rather than go, wow, what the hell is actually going on here? Yeah.
Yeah. And like the way I see it is in a way kind of similar to some of the things the Gooning man was talking about. That sounds so bad, the Gooning man. I don't know what to call him. I don't know if you ever heard his name.
He's a
Heard of the Gooner. Yeah, the Gooner. Or the Goonie. Maybe Goonie. And look, there's no shame or judgment in here. Like I've been there myself, right? I mean, I never got to the level where I set up like my own goon cave or anything like that. But I would seek some of that sort of gooner type content online. And, I've been in that full like depth of that addiction. And I think it's so important to know that you can fully get out of that. And it's, as you said, it's not about your sexual desires. You're not born, you don't come out of the womb thinking, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll have 20 screens and watch porn for 12 hours. Like, porn is just so far from what that sexual desire in you is really all about as well. Like, the desire is there, like, for a reason, right? It's to, evolution is to keep our species going. It's not a bad thing to have sexual desires. But the goon caves, this is a completely different thing. And it's absolutely about compulsive desire, as you say, and that tolerance cycle. And this guy probably didn't set up the goon cave on day one of watching porn. It's like that tolerance of watching porn for probably 10, 20 years, whatever. And then this is how it's ended up after years of probably trying to stop this problem, but being fed misinformation online as well.
And calling him out on it. I mean, and I feel like, again, like he was trying to, he wanted to get called out, it's like a 2-year-old testing you, they want to get called out, and the thing is you can call out somebody's behavior without judging them, without being judgmental, you know what I mean? And I feel like someone like him to call it out and really offer some help, that's compassionate, where this therapist just seemed to, well, she was enabling it, and she was just more useless than anything. I don't know. She was bad news, but yeah. So, I mean, but they look at it like, oh, if you call them out, you're shaming them or you're judging them. It's like, no, it's like, we're not shaming anybody. We're not judging anybody. We're trying to help these people. And if you don't help them get clear on what is really going on, what good is it? What good are you? You're just not helping. It's not helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. I know we're going to have to keep this podcast quite short today because obviously we've got a group call in about 10 minutes. But just a point on that, I mean, you could get into the whole macro societal disorder-based problem going on at scale and like really diagnose and explore that whole topic, because if you go into like the paradigms that we're currently living in, like what's going on is people are judging people based on who they believe they are in this identity lens, through this idea that we're going to diagnose them with a disorder. But when you see things through our like rational emotive behavioral therapy sort of lens, where you see people's behaviours and their actions and their thought patterns and their beliefs, and you see that anyone has the potential to completely transform their life, and you let go of that sort of egotistic mindset, that identity-based mindset, the disorder-based mindset, you realise that we will have perhaps some judgments of a behaviour, but that is completely isolated and separate from the judgment of the person, because they're two separate things, right? And this is where society has gone completely wrong, because everyone's getting diagnosed with different things nowadays. But really, it's not about who they are fundamentally, it's about a behaviour in their life which can be changed with the right education and tools.
Well, too, and you don't want to be judgmental or shame them or anything, but yet you're going to diagnose them. Next thing it's going to be a GCD, Goon Cave disorder. That's kind of judgmental. You got this disorder, or maybe it's just a GD, Gooner disorder. That to me seems judgmental, because you're putting this label on people, rather than, oh, you're a person who's gotten so far gone in your porn addiction you built this tolerance. Now you're gooning or we don't want to use a stupid term, It's like you're locked in a room with 20 monitors for 12 hours at a time, doing nothing but jacking off to pornography and all different. There's this screen has this kind, and this screen has this, and this screen just has the girls in the bikini. And, it's like, this is something that is happening to you right now and can be changed. We're not going to, slap a label on you, because that's not going to help. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so based on that sort of fixed mindset, if you put the label on someone, or you see it as part of their like sexual identity or sexual template or any of that bullshit as well. No. It's just you've ended up there as you would with drugs. You may start out with some like seemingly harmless like joint, and then you're smoking some weed, and then get into cocaine. Next thing you know, you're taking heroin, and it just goes on, and you're on crystal meth. And it's like it's a similar sort of trajectory with the pornography, and like the end level of porn is going to be gooning, and then even perhaps illegal stuff, and it could go on even worse from there. But this is the tolerance cycle, and it's so crazy that people don't see that cycle and think, actually no, there's probably some problematic use or something going on there. It's not going to be just this guy feeling like lonely or disconnected or anything. And even in the video, he didn't really seem to express that his life was that bad other than this one problem. And it's like he kept repeating that over and over, like, no, the main problem is like the gooning. Then the therapist comes along and like tries to make it about something else, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, you just listen to the person. Like, it's so obvious if you just listen to them and hear what they say, you can hear that that's the main problem in his life.
Yeah. I want to look up goon, see what the definition of goon is. I'll do it after the podcast, but yeah, it's just, I wonder how it got that name to begin with, but do you know?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
I'll
look into it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll wrap it up here. I know we don't have long, but hopefully someone listening to this who maybe started to identify as like a gooner or whatever you're meant to call these guys who are stuck in that addiction, like identifying themselves as, can maybe have some hope and some relief and know that there's nothing wrong with you. And the same goes for any like tolerance cycle based problematic porn use. Like there's all kinds of different categories we could talk about, but really they all kind of stem from the same sort of thought patterns and that lack of control in that critical moment when you have the desires, and knowing that the desires aren't because there's something wrong with you, but they've come across, you've started to have these desires because you've wired your neural pathways in this way, right? And it's not who you are like from birth, some innate desire to end up creating a goon cave. It's really just the tolerance cycle.
Yeah.
So
yeah, good stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully this helps someone. Cheers guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.